we got a new development in the Coinbase versus SEC case, which like we have SEC versus Coinbase, and we also have Coinbase versus SEC, because Coinbase, as we remember, is also suing SEC over its attack on the exchange. And this case took a somewhat interesting legal turn, as Coinbase says that the Coinbase next argument is that the SEC cannot just claim this huge power over crypto industry, just decide who is right and who is wrong without a kind of a broader support from other branches of power. And they're using the recent decision of the Supreme Court that essentially on President Biden's student loan forgiveness. So the Supreme Court said the Secretary of Education could not claim such a huge economic and political power without the clear support of Congress. And this means that Gary Gensler also cannot do that regarding the crypto industry, which is an interesting move, I guess. I wonder how it plays out in court. I must only say that I'm kind of, I feel sad when people hate student loan forgiveness, but that's a completely different topic. What do you guys think?
That's my role on the show, and I often feel sad about many of the things that we talk about. But this is a really interesting argument, I think, from Coinbase's lawyers to draw on that ruling from the Supreme Court, which came on June 30th. So after the SEC filed their lawsuit against Coinbase, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm with you, Anna. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I do want to say that former CFTC Chair Tim Massad was on First Mover recently. We were talking about the bipartisan bill, the Lummis-Gillibrand bill that addresses crypto regulation, addresses a lot of the things that Coinbase wants to get solved for the industry and hopes to solve for the industry through these ongoing lawsuits. And Massad said that, it's not likely that we will get any movement on any of this ahead of the 2024 elections, although, he is hopeful. We are all hopeful. But that is kind of another sad element of this, Anna. Like, I would hope to get some movement as we go into next year, but there's a lot other things happening in the political atmosphere over there in the U.S. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, what this boils down to is just a separation of powers with how the U.S. government's set up, right? We have our three branches, pretty typical, right? And here, the presidential arm of the government historically started meddling with some things economic, and that is not favorable towards Congress, which is supposed to act on these things and actually pass legislation. People get a little upset. They think like Congress is taking too long. And so that's why we see executive orders that push forward such as things with student loan forgiveness. But at the end of the day, that part of the government doesn't have the ability to make sweeping changes like that. And so I think that's what Coinbase is sort of reporting out here, being like, well, the SEC is technically under the executive arm of the government, and they are acting in this new industry with old information, and they're acting on it without the behest of Congress, which is actively working on legislation to address this whole part of a new industry, honestly. And so I think they're upset about that, and it's a fair point to make. Now, the rebuttal, of course, is that maybe these things that we call tokens are just unregistered securities, and there is no difference to them just because they're on and digital. I think the XRP case we talked about at the beginning of the show is informative here, right? The fact that maybe these are not unregistered securities. They're not investment contracts. Just because you say they are, SEC, doesn't mean they necessarily are. So I think what we are seeing this morning after what was kind of a slow news week is two pretty big arguments compiled on top of each other. Jen, back to you.
Yeah, I don't think we said this yet. So I think it's important that Supreme Court ruling we're talking about reinforced a legal doctrine that says the government agencies need clear support from Congress before making decisions of major economic or political significance. And then, Will, to your point with the XRP case, I know I just keep bringing up First Mover. I learned so much on that show. We had Lisa Braganza, former SEC Enforcement Branch Chief and attorney, on the show this morning, and we asked her if the XRP case would have any kind of real implication for Coinbase's case. And she said that, she thinks that Coinbase could and will bring up what happens, but it wouldn't really have any real effect.
We'll see what happens with it. Definitely a little bit different.
That's just her take. It doesn't, that's just her take. We've definitely seen stranger things happen in this industry.